I found out my girlfriend was charging people rent in my house. The crazy part? She didn't pay rent herself. For context, I'm 31. A few years ago, my grandfather passed away and left me his house. Nothing fancy. Just a nice two-story place in a decent neighborhood. No mortgage. No debt. Just mine. About a year later, my girlfriend Ashley moved in. At first, things were great. She helped decorate, bought plants, made the place feel more like a home. I genuinely thought we'd end up getting married. Then Ashley started talking about getting roommates. I immediately said no. I didn't need the money. And honestly, I liked having my own space. That should have been the end of the conversation. It wasn't. Every few weeks, she'd bring it up again. Talk about extra income. Talk about the guest room going to waste. Every time I told her the same thing. No. Then Ashley's friend Jessica suddenly needed somewhere to stay. Apparently, her lease ended unexpectedly. Ashley begged me for days. It'll only be temporary. Eventually, I gave in. Jessica moved into the guest room. Weeks turned into months. But honestly, she was great. Clean, quiet, respectful, no problems at all. Then one Friday, I got off work early. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard Ashley and Jessica arguing. I wasn't trying to listen. Then I heard my name. So naturally, I stopped. Jessica sounded frustrated. No, that's not fair. Ashley sighed. It is fair. Then Jessica said something that made my stomach drop. Why am I paying more than him? Paying? Paying what? Ashley immediately lowered her voice. Can you keep it down? At that point, my heart was pounding, because I had never charged Jessica a single dollar. I walked into the kitchen. Both of them froze. Ashley looked terrified. Jessica looked relieved. I stared at Ashley, then looked at Jessica, and asked, Jessica, how much rent are you paying? Ashley immediately jumped in. Wait! But Jessica answered first. $800 a month. My jaw hit the floor. $800 per month. For 6 months, Ashley had collected nearly $5,000 using my house. Without telling me, I looked directly at Ashley. Where did the money go? She started stammering, trying to explain, trying to change the subject. Then Jessica accidentally said something that made the entire situation worse. She looked confused and asked, Wait, she never told you about the apartment? The apartment? I felt my stomach drop. Slowly, I turned toward Ashley. Her face had gone completely white. And that's when I knew the money wasn't being saved. It wasn't helping with bills. There was something else she had been hiding. And judging by the look on her face, I was never supposed to find out. The apartment? The second those words left Jessica's mouth, Ashley looked like she wanted the floor to swallow her. Jessica glanced between us, confused. Then slowly said, Wait, you really don't know. I looked directly at Ashley. Know what? Ashley immediately jumped in. It's not a big deal. Which is how people announce that something is, in fact, a very big deal. I turned back to Jessica. What apartment? Jessica hesitated. Then said, The one Ashley's been renting. Silence. Complete silence. I stared at Ashley. Ashley stared at Jessica. Jessica stared at both of us. Then she realized she'd just detonated a bomb. You thought he knew, Ashley snapped. Jessica looked horrified. You told me he did. My heart was pounding now. Renting? What apartment? Why would Ashley be renting an apartment if she lived with me? And more importantly, how was she paying for it? Then the answer hit me. The rent money. The nearly $5,000. Ashley had been collecting it from Jessica. Not for bills. Not for savings. For the apartment. I looked at Ashley. Tell me right now. She crossed her arms, defensive immediately. It's just a small apartment. Just a small apartment. Like that explained anything. Why do you have an apartment? Ashley looked away. Huge red flag. Then she said something that made my stomach drop. In case we didn't work out. I actually laughed. Not because it was funny. Because it was insane. She had secretly rented an apartment as a backup plan, using money she collected from her friend. In my house, without telling me, for 6 months. Jessica looked uncomfortable. Very uncomfortable. Then she quietly added, I thought you were helping pay for it. Ashley closed her eyes, because she knew she was caught. Apparently, she'd told Jessica that we were splitting expenses, that I knew everything, that the rent was being used for our future. None of it was true. Every single part was a lie. I looked around my kitchen. At the house my grandfather left me. The house I let Ashley move into. The house where she secretly ran her own landlord business. Then another question hit me. A really important one. How much is the apartment? Ashley didn't answer. How much? Very quietly, she said, $1,400. I froze. $1,400. Jessica was paying $800. Ashley wasn't contributing much of anything, which meant there was still money missing. A lot of money. Jessica apparently realized the same thing, because she frowned and asked, Wait, if the apartment costs $1,400? Then she did the math out loud. And the second she finished, both of us turned toward Ashley, because suddenly we had a brand new question. Where was the rest of the money going? Because suddenly we had a brand new question. Where was the rest of the money going? Ashley looked away immediately. Never a good sign, Jessica asked again. Seriously, where did it go? Ashley crossed her arms. Why does it matter? That answer told me everything. If there was a normal explanation, she would have given it. Instead, she got defensive. I looked at her. Ashley, where did the money go? For a moment, I thought she wasn't going to answer. Then she sighed dramatically, like she was somehow the victim, and said, I used some of it. Some of it. I almost laughed. How much is some? Silence. Then, most of it. Jessica's eyes widened. Mine probably did too. Most? Ashley rolled her eyes. Why are you both acting like this? Acting like what? Confused? Because she had secretly collected thousands of dollars? Then she dropped another bomb. I used it for my business. Business. That was interesting, because Ashley didn't own a business, at least not one I'd ever heard of. What business? She hesitated. Another bad sign, then quietly said, my online store. I blinked. The one that made $50 last year? Jessica actually snorted. Ashley shot her a glare. Apparently, Ashley had spent thousands of dollars trying to turn her side, hustle into a full-time business, advertising, inventory, website redesigns, packaging, marketing courses, all funded by money she never should have had. Then Jessica said something that made everything worse. Wait! She looked at Ashley. You told me the apartment was your emergency fund. Ashley froze. And there it was. Another lie. Apparently, Ashley told Jessica the apartment existed as a safety net. Meanwhile, she told me nothing. And in reality, she was draining the rent money into a business that wasn't making profit. The lies were stacking up faster than I could process them. Then Jessica pulled out her phone, scrolled for a second, and said, Actually, I still have the messages. Ashley immediately panicked. Aren't you being a little dramatic? No. Jessica looked angry now. Really angry. Because apparently, she'd just realized she'd been manipulated too. She opened the messages and started reading them out loud, message after message. Ashley telling Jessica I approved everything. Ashley saying I wanted Jessica there. Ashley claiming I was helping pay for the apartment. Ashley promising the rent money was being saved. Every single message was a lie. I just sat there listening. The worst part wasn't the money anymore. It was realizing how comfortable Ashley was lying. Not one lie, not two, dozens, maybe hundreds. Then Jessica reached one message and stopped. Her expression changed immediately. Ashley? Ashley looked nervous. What? Jessica slowly looked up from her phone, then at me, and quietly said, Who the hell is Brandon? The color disappeared from Ashley's face, instantly. And that's when I knew the apartment wasn't the biggest secret she'd been hiding. The second Jessica said the name, Ashley looked terrified. Not annoyed. Not defensive. Terrified. Who is Brandon? I asked. Ashley immediately shook her head. It's not what you think. Which, in my experience, is usually exactly what it is. Jessica stared at her phone, then slowly looked at me. I thought Brandon was your cousin. Ashley closed her eyes, and that was all the answer I needed. My stomach dropped. No way. Ashley started talking fast. Too fast. Trying to explain before either of us could ask another question. Nothing happened. We were just friends. You're making this bigger than it is. Every sentence made it worse, because innocent people don't start defending themselves before they're accused. Then Jessica quietly asked, Is that why you rented the apartment? Silence. Complete silence. Ashley didn't answer. She didn't have to. The look on her face said everything. The apartment wasn't a backup plan. It wasn't an emergency fund. It wasn't for independence. It was for Brandon. I felt weirdly calm, like my brain had finally reached its limit. The lies. The rent money. The apartment. Now this. It was too much to even be angry about. I just looked at her and said, Pack your stuff. Ashley blinked. What? You heard me. She immediately started crying. Not sad crying. Caught crying. There's a difference. Suddenly she wanted to fix things. Suddenly she loved me. Suddenly she'd made mistakes. Funny how that works. A week earlier, she was secretly charging rent in my house. Now she wanted another chance. I wasn't interested. 3 days later, she moved out, into the apartment, which honestly solved that mystery. As for Jessica, I gave her every dollar back. All $4,800, because none of this was her fault. Turns out she was being lied to just as much as I was. The funniest part came about a month later. A mutual friend called me. Apparently, Ashley's online store failed. The apartment lease became too expensive. And Brandon? Brandon had a girlfriend the entire time. A girlfriend who found out about Ashley and immediately cut contact. So in the span of a few weeks, Ashley lost the house, the relationship, the side business, and the guy she was hiding. All because she got greedy. Meanwhile, Jessica eventually found her own place. We're still friends, and every once in a while, we'll joke about how she accidentally exposed an entire secret life with one sentence. Wait, she never told you about the apartment? Honestly, best sentence I've ever heard. Because if Jessica hadn't said it, I probably would have married her, and that's a terrifying thought.